our regularly scheduled program.
There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long look after the star itself is gone. And so it is, people that we love, their memories keep shining, well last green bright to the time it with us is done. Are the star that's light the darkness night. There are stars above us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק אשר אינם עמדו בעינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות אלה הממעיקים באבקת הליל, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך, את הדרך, את הדרך.
I don't think it will be to anyone's surprise that Carol Schectman created her own funeral, more or less. She and I met on December 14th, 2022, where she delivered to me her notes, which made it clear what she wanted to be included. Now, fair to say I encouraged her to do this, but I encourage everyone to do this, and not all people follow the rules. But Carol did, and so much of this, what we'll do today, what we did when she was buried last week, is a reflection of her. And she talked about wanting something that emphasized love and friendship and understanding and laughter, many of the things that were her life. And if we think about the song that Cantor Norman just sang about, it was a poem. It was based on the writings of the Jewish partisan Hannah Senesh, who lost her life as a young woman in the Holocaust after she had parachuted, gone to Israel, come back to fight against the Nazis, to save Jews, and she wrote about how there are stars that we don't see, until after they perish. But there are also people whose light will carry us into the future. If we think about Carol's life, she was one of those lights, and she shone brightly for us here, Temple Sinai, her family of choice, her family of origin, her camp family, her students. All of this is a reflection of her. So this afternoon is about her, and we're glad that she got to direct the traffic today. We continue with Shiviti Adonai, Lenegdi Tamid, that we should place God in front of us. And those of us at Temple Sinai know that for certainly the 22 years that I have been her rabbi, that Judaism has been a part of her life. That she has found comfort in it, that she has found community in it, that she has found direction and knowledge in it, and that when she could, and even when she couldn't physically be here, that she was here as a regular in prayer. Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid.
Shiviti Adonai Lenegdi Tamid Ki mimini Bal Emun לכן שמח ליבי ויקל כבודי אך בשרי ישכון לבטח כי לא תעזור נפשי לשאול לא תיתן חסדך לראות שחר תודיעני אורח חיים אורח חיים סובב שמחות את בניך נמוד במנחה נצח שיוויתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד כי ממני בא אמון.
Carol emphasized that she wanted poetry to be a part of her memorial service, and she directed what it was that she wanted to be read, although as we laughed when we were together, I said, I'm going to get the last laugh, and that I get to choose. I'm going to largely stick with her choices. There's a poem by Bessie Anderson Stanley, who was born not so far before Carol herself was born, who wrote a poem about achieving success in life. She writes, "She has achieved success who has lived well, laughed often, and loved much, who has gained the respect of intelligent men and women and the love of little children, who has filled her niche and accomplished her task, who has left the world better than she found it, whether by an improved poppy, a perfect poem, or a rescued soul, who has never lacked appreciation of earth's beauty or failed to express it, who has always looked for the best in others and given the best she had, whose life was an inspiration, whose memory is a benediction." a poem by Rabbi Alan Maller titled, "When All That Is Left Is Love." When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your simchas and multiplying your mitzvot. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not on your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our Torah teaches. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. There are a number of people that counted Carol as a friend and as someone who they loved and she loved back. And we get the chance to hear from some of them today. We're going to start with some friends of hers, Sandy Goodman, and then Marty and Heather Oppenheimer, and then two of her grandchildren, Josh Baylor and Brooke Benfurado. Sandy?
Oh boy. I wasn't going to say anything, but I heard Carol, and she wanted it. I can hear her in my head, so this is my best. We met around 2007, if I'm remembering correctly, at what was then for us called Ruach, and a bunch of us are here. And I called that group of people who today still meets as Torah study. At that time, there was a Torah study in the rabbi's office, and there was Ruach in the library. And we were the spirit. We truly were. I was new. We had just returned from sailing. And I was refinding myself in Judaism and at the temple, and I came to this group of what I called, and to this day call, the Jewish intellectuals. It was not necessarily the most religious of people. Many came to study because we did the weekly parashah, still do, and discussed it and discussed parts of it and what we accepted and what we didn't accept. And as per usual, Carol and I were on the same page. Feminism. And Irene, she was with me there. This group of intellectuals who had questioned so much and were so intelligent, and of course Carol was in the middle of this group, and she and Aaron and the Frank and Charlotte Cohn were the center of our group at that time, and Aaron always was laughing and had something to add funny, and Carol was the first one to read, and I think maybe 2 weeks ago Carol was at Torah study, and she was the first to read. So she was so proud of her reading, and she did not like when people did not read well. Carol and I texted throughout the time at Torah study. When on Zoom, we had opinions, and I'm saving some of our texts because they were really amazing, and her personality comes through. I guess mine does too. She loved to read. My last time with Carol was at the Sterling, and we were choosing books off the shelf from the library. She was super proud of her classical reform background. We heard about that a lot. When Aaron died in 2020, and it was just about the time COVID lockdown started, she and I became super close because there was nobody around to go to the cemetery, and I didn't live that far away from her. So I and Rabbi, I think, and Cantor and Susan Work, that we were the people in person at the cemetery, and we bonded closer ever after that. We felt the same about so many things. We adored music, from classical to she and I went to see Hamilton together. She loved Hamilton. She listened to all of the songs before so she could hear better. So our reading tastes were the same. Our politics were, still are. Our feminism views, our feeling about religion, the intellectual part, questioning a lot of the religious part. Our dislike of the chant of El Mali Rachamim and desire everybody can hear. I also do not want it played. Please note that. All right. We fit together so well, and we would watch MSNBC together and have our opinions, variety shows, all kinds of things. When I moved and then she moved, we couldn't see each other as often, but we talked almost every night. Her loves were the cantor and the choir. Oh my goodness. Alan and Torah study. Wow. But she rated them too. Yeah. Maria and Heather, wow, and Marty. Her neighbor Becky, her beloved daughters, oh my goodness. Yes, you also got rated too, but you came up pretty high, and Joe too, and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and Aaron's family was her family, and I'm so glad to meet everybody. And her outlook was always looking forward. Wherever she was, it was good. I never heard her complain about a place she lived. When I last saw her that day, we were picking books. There was a new lady who had moved into the Sterling and was having a hard time adjusting, Betty. So that was her new project, was to make Betty comfortable at the Sterling because, she was looking forward. When we would go out to the cemetery, we went out a few times to visit Aaron's grave. Susan is making me think of this. She would point out the people in the neighborhood. She would say, here is, I'll be with the Berlins, and I'll be with the Leopolds, and she said, this will be my new neighborhood. And going out there the other day, and then I know she's really happy in her new neighborhood with Aaron. I know she is, and I'll miss her to my dying day. She's a very special lady.
We're up here together, and you'll hear me use we a lot because Heather and I share a brain, so we have to be together on this. And Heather is the stoic one that can get through things. I get the emotional one, so she's the one that has to make sure we get through this. First of all, I wanted to thank Nancy and Karen for giving me the honor to share my feelings, and for these beautiful pictures from her birthday, her recent birthday. Thank you so much. Who'd have imagined that Heather and I would develop such a close relationship with someone who was 90 years old when we met her, 23 years older than us. And that friendship began at choir with Carol and Heather singing alto voice, and Aaron and I singing. That time we didn't distinguish it with the baritone voice. And it started out, we just clicked. It was a great friendship right from the beginning. And even though Aaron was declining by then, people didn't realize how old Carol was because she acted so young. Her voice was strong and clear. Her hair was dark without ever coloring it. Heather was amazed by that. She was physically active, completely up to date what was happening in the world. So we even had to have her tell people when Aaron was in the rehabilitation center not to make her walk a quarter of a mile down the hall because she was 92 or 94 years old. They thought she was 75. So, and even though she was born actually the same year as Heather's father, we never thought of her as a parent figure or a grandparent figure. She was a friend, and we became so close that we consider what we call relatives by choice. She was just part of our family, and I think we were part of her family. You know, Carol was always so appreciative of anything anybody did for her. Her children, her friends, anybody, the temple. Anytime somebody did, she would be so thankful and say and let them know that. She was always proper. She was always well dressed. You can see Karen's wearing. That's Carol right there. She was always well dressed, proper. She and positive. And how she loved her Temple Sinai family as well as her own family. And within that, what Sandy said about the Torah study and singing with the choir just gave her such joy, and us such joy as well. And she loved, as I said, loved her family, and especially got so excited when people would come to visit. When her daughters, when her daughter-in-law, anybody of the family that came to visit, we would hear about it for weeks beforehand that they were coming. But she also got angry sometime. I guess what Sandy was talking about being, grading things. She got angry, and she would sometimes share that anger with people. And I thankfully, at least as far as I know, she didn't get angry with me. I stayed away from that.
We heard some really interesting comments during services every so often.
And she was tough and resilient. And that came through what Sandy was talking. When Aaron died at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and she couldn't even visit him in the nursing home before he died, she had to manage her grief mostly alone. I mean, we could be with her on Zoom, we could be with her on the phone, but nobody was there to hug her, to hold her hand.
There he goes.
And Sandy said, only Sandy, sucked it in and said, I'm going to the cemetery with her.
With the rabbi
And yeah.
Susan. No,
And even though we couldn't be with her in person a lot during the pandemic, she had what I call her posse. She had Sandy, and she had Maria Wolf, and she had Becky, and she had Heather, and I kind of tagged along. I heard about it, through Heather. But that was her posse, and other people from the temple. I mean, she was extremely close to Sue Clow, and that was a big blow when Sue died. And right up to the end, even after COVID, this same group, everybody would keep tabs on Carol. During the pandemic, we tried to visit her at least once a week, we brought our son and daughter-in-law's dog once. She didn't
like
I mean, we were outside, but she didn't like it. That was taken away from our time with her. And we would, we'd bring any groceries she needed to fill in. People did that. And I would put them by their door, ring their doorbell, go back downstairs, and then she would be up on the balcony, I'll call it, the walkway, and we would be down in the parking lot and have this conversation. And she called that her Romeo and Juliet time. And then once the initial COVID emergency was over, she really wanted to get out. And we had instituted what we called Tourist Tuesday, where we on Tuesdays would do things that tourists did. And she was really happy. It wasn't always a Tuesday, but she always wanted to come with us for Tourist Tuesday. We went to Wakotahachee Wetlands Refuge. It's up in Delray. We took her down to the Everglades and Big Cypress and went on the loop road down there, and she loved to go out to lunch, with us. And one of her favorite places, we didn't get to it in the end, but one of her favorite places is the Dumpling King on whatever 163rd becomes when it goes out toward the highway. It's a great place, got good soup dumplings. She loved that and always wanted to go back. Last few times we had lunch at the Sterling, which was very nice. And I think, as Sandy said, wherever she laid her head was home, and that was fine. She loved. Turn it over. Thank you. Forgot about that. So she remained active till the end. She looked forward to celebrating her 98th birthday, which she got to do on January 5th. Well in advance, she ordered brisket for Maria to make. That's what she wanted. It was yummy. If you ever get a chance to have Maria's brisket or Napoleon's, you're in for a treat. Right. And but what really thrilled her about that birthday is Maria had set up a surprise. She had invited the rabbi and the cantor and Susan to come. They all came, and Carol was thrilled. She was just beaming. As you can see in these pictures here, she was beaming with joy. And she was so happy, and we were so happy. The last 2 weekends before she died, she was able to come to Saturday morning Shabbat services and to sing and practice with the choir, which she loved. And on the first one she came to was the outdoor Shabbat. She had an aliyah, big, strong voice. She got up in front and got some pictures we'll share with you. So when we think of Carol not being physically present, we're sad, mostly for us, but not unhappy. She had a long, active life filled with people who loved her and who she loved. And her memory will always be a blessing.
This is something that Marty wrote after Aaron died, and he can't handle reading it, so I'm going to do it. For Carol and Aaron, though we're apart, we are with you. Though we can't hold hands, we reach out to you. Though we cannot touch, we send you our hugs. We share your tears, we share your laughter. We share memories of times together. Music we made fills our ears. Though we're apart, memories touch the heart.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to hear from some of the people that I've heard so much about over the years and put names to these faces. I heard all about the brisket and the birthday lunch and how happy she was that day, and that really warmed my heart. One thing you may not have known about my grandmother was that she was the proud curator of an extensive collection of hippo memorabilia. Indeed, whenever I spotted an interesting hippo-related treasure, I would always think of her. This postcard, dating back to 2012, was recently discovered in her apartment when my mom and Aunt Karen were cleaning it out when she moved into the Sterling, it was a testament not only to her love of hippos, but also her love for me and her grandchildren. I imagine her receiving it and flashing that big smile of hers, admiring the newest addition to the bloat. That's the word for a group of hippos. Carol's smile. Somehow she was always smiling. You could see it when we were together. You can see it in that picture. You could hear it when we spoke on the phone. Ours was an uncomplicated relationship. There was a predictable cadence to our calls, usually where she would tell me all about her wonderful friends and the kindness they showed to her, and then her wanting to hear about my life. It was during those moments when she took on the role of my cheerleader from afar, always there to gush about her grandchildren, and especially her great-grandchildren. When I wasn't hearing about how magnificent and special my own children were, I was listening to her boast about my brothers and the special talents of their children, and John and his new baby. I'll miss those talks. I will miss seeing her big, beaming smile and her vivacious personality. How fortunate we all are to have been able to share this time with my grandmother. She's been steadfast for me through triumphs as well as hardships. I won't take that for granted, and I will always hear her voice, as it was at the end of our calls, telling me, "Darling, what a delicious visit this has been." Grandma, it really was.
Hi, I'm Josh Baylor, one of Grandma's grandchildren. Her first, as she would remind me of many times, and I'll come to that. I didn't prepare anything. I didn't know I was going to be given the opportunity to speak today, so what comes out might be a stream of consciousness, and I hope you'll bear with me if it does get disjointed. As I was listening to friends of Grandma speak, I too, as my sister did, am now able to put faces to names and scenarios and calls. Apparently there's calls every night. I guess that was you, Sandy, and Becky, and Denise, of course, and Mom, right, but I knew about Denise and Mom. And now I'm putting names to faces, as well as, Grandma would tell me, "Oh, I've got my community and my friends, and they come to visit, and they take me out to lunch, and we do this," and so it's great to see and hear about that. I think as I was listening to you all share your thoughts, I got saddened, and I didn't expect to talk about this, but it surfaced some sadness in me, and so I'm going to lead with that, and then I'm going to wrap it up with some more positive memories and thoughts, and probably more reminisce than anything else, and I hope you'll bear with me, and maybe you can enjoy some of the memories that I have. But both people that came here talked about COVID and lockdowns. And I remember when Grandpa died, thinking to myself how lonely Grandma must be by herself. And at the time, that was, 3 years ago, I had very strong emotions and feelings about it, and they subsided, and it was just brought back up again. And how difficult that must be for her by herself, not having a community, not being able to be by him. And it also made me think about, I don't want to bring this too much back to me, but Grandma as well, being robbed of years of seeing her family. And I feel unnecessarily. And it creates a sense of sadness, but it's also a sense of frustration in me, because I use that word unnecessarily deliberately. And I want to pause for a minute and hope you all can think about that as well, and the people you didn't get to see. Fortunately, this ends on a happy note. because we did get to see Grandma in December, as a matter of fact, after 4 years. I'll take you back to some memories that I have. Wendy Klarman and I were reminiscing when I came in about the parties that Grandma would throw at her house in Livingston, New Jersey, that I would attend from as early as I can remember. Mom and Dad would pack us up and we'd go to Grandma's. And I have some of my earliest memories are of being with Grandma at her house in Livingston, the parties she would throw. And she would always make these breaded chicken wings. I know it's a memory I have, but that's the memory that we have, right? And I would just devour these things. And she would always save a separate batch for when everybody left for me. And then I remember when she moved to Elberon, New Jersey, and I would have sleepovers over there. And I think they got me a skateboard, or they let me ride a skateboard, and I got these really cool, bright orange Converse high tops. I'll never forget that. And then I had the very fortunate experience of living in Miami. I'm from New Jersey. I went to University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and then I lived in New York City for 10 years. And then in 2010, work took me to Miami. And so I got to spend 4 years with Grandma and Grandpa, and we spent it well. I would cook for them on holidays. They'd come over. I would take them out. We'd go out. Not necessarily me taking them out. We'd go out together. I remember driving, so that's what I mean by taking them out. And we got to spend some unbelievably quality time after so many years of me growing into my manhood and doing my thing. So it was nice to circle back and have that time with Grandma and Grandpa. Then career took me back to Philadelphia, back to the Northeast, and now I'm stuck there. And I'd love to be here with you all more often. I thought constantly about when my boys are in college and I can move back to Florida, I'll get to spend more time with Grandma because I'm moving back to Florida that day that my youngest enters college. Sadly, that won't be the case. But I do have one last absolutely delicious memory of Grandma. My two boys, myself and my fiancée Kirsten, do an annual trip to Longboat Key, where my parents live. Carol's daughter Nancy, husband Joe. And this year, I decided, hey, you know what? We go from Longboat Key to Duck Key in the Keys, and then we come back. You know, Aventura is only maybe an hour, 2 hours out of the way. Grandma's feeling comfortable with visitors again. We got to do this. And so it was like, we're gonna get back so late, and there's so much driving. No, we're gonna do this. And so we did. And fortunately for all of us, and for Grandma, for my two sons, her great-grandchildren, Max and Miles, we left Duck Key, and we beelined for Grandma. I let her know the day before, so it was a surprise that she was gonna have us as visitors. And Mom told me that that morning she sat in the lobby all morning waiting for us. And I felt a little bad that we weren't there sooner, but and when we walked in, there she was, and she popped up, and we all embraced. We went out to Moe's Deli on her request. She got her tongue sandwich, yes. Yes. And my boys were a little bit confused about why a person would eat tongue, but it was an introduction to delicatessen. And we sat at lunch, and she smiled the whole time and was radiant and beamed. And everybody had great conversation. My dad, my two sons, Kirsten, myself, and Grandma. And we went back to the Sterling where she was living, and she took out photo albums and articles and showed us, some of her memories. And so we got to share that with her this December. And I feel very fortunate and lucky that we had that opportunity. I'll leave you with this, and I don't mean to make my brother or sister feel jealous. But whenever I would talk to her on the phone, she would always remind me that I was her first grandchild and that we had a special bond.
Oh,
But then again, I just have to tell you, thank you. You took such care of my mother. You loved her. And I realized after all these years and reading all the cards that we've gotten and hearing from people, I realized why my mother and I butted heads. I'm just like her. I just realized it. You know, I'm 72. It's taken me this long. I am just like her. Can you imagine us butting heads all the time? I get it now. I finally get it. But thank you. She felt so loved by you, you know, and being as far away as I was, of course, the Jewish guilt, so, you know, my poor sister has to take care of everything. And thank God, Denise, the daughter she never had, I had to throw that out there. Can you imagine? Yeah, that's Carol. I love my mother. I am my mother. I'm wearing her clothes. That's the grief.
it feels particularly appropriate as for me to teach a text. There's a story out of Jewish tradition that when the hour came for the great Hasidic teacher, Rabbi Elimelech, to depart from the world, he placed his hands on the foreheads of 4 of his disciples and gave them each a portion of his soul. To the seer of Lublin, he gave the light of his eyes. To the Maggid of Koznitz, he gave his heart. To Rabbi Mendel of Prustik, he gave his mind. And to the Rabbi of Apt, he gave the power of his tongue. Think about what a beautiful story that is, to live in a way that when we die, there will be a light in our eyes worth someone's guarding, a heart worth someone's remembering, a mind worth recalling, and a tongue whose wisdom death does not diminish. Carol gave those away long before she died. The light of her eyes, of course, the light of her eyes, her true love, as she said, was the relationship that she had with Aaron. She was fortunate, though, in that she had the chance to love 2 men in her life, and not for short periods of time. For Aaron, I think they were married 41 years, and Kermit, Nancy and Karen's father, they were married 26 years, more or less. Did I get it right? Close enough. And I have it written down. I could look it up. And how extraordinary that was. But I didn't know Kermit, but I did know Aaron, and I know their relationship, the fact that they did everything together, so much so that it was just sort of one long name, Carol and Aaron, no spaces in between the words. When it came to sight, all you needed to do was look in their apartment, where you saw a reflection of all the things that were of interest to her, of them, their shared passion for music and art. But I think that their real love for sight was demonstrated by seeing the world. I didn't know that they drove across the country 5 times in an RV. I look at Carol and I think about Carol. I didn't think about Carol when she was younger. But I do know that they had, Carol and Aaron had a love for cruising, and that included that just wonderful 4-month-long around the world cruise. I remember them going on, I remember them coming back from it. I think about her heart. For those of us who met her in her later lives, it might come as a surprise that Carol had a lifelong love for summer camp. From the age of 8, Carol spent her summers as a camper, then as a counselor, and then for something like 3 decades, she was the head counselor at a number of camps, but the last one, Camp Scatico in Elizaville, New York. And she talked a lot about her love for camp. She really gave her heart to her campers and her counselors, and they adored her in return. They and their families, because she, as head counselor, would be in contact with the families, with the parents, and she developed relationships with them as well. And they maintained those relationships long after the kids packed up their bag for at the end of the summer. She would go and visit them. She and Aaron would go and visit them, and when her campers would be in town, they would come and visit her. I think about her mind, where I got really the chance to see her. She was from Erasmus Hall High School in Brooklyn to a bachelor's and a master's from NYU. That was just the start of her being a lifelong student. It was as a student that I really got to see her, because as Sandy got in before I did, she and Aaron were Shabbat Torah study regulars even before I arrived 22 years ago. And I think about the love that she had for learning and the love that she had for her students, and that she instilled and encouraged that love in her students. And anybody who knew her remembers the great moment, I think a pinnacle of her life, when she got to go on the Chelsea Handler show, where Chelsea Handler admitted that Miss Schectman was the teacher that allowed her to see her worth, and how dedicated Carol was to all of her students. And then finally, her speech. And as you heard before, let's just say that Carol was not one to mince words. She said unapologetically what was on her mind, that she could be tough and outspoken, but that there was wisdom in those words. And so, yes, the light of her eyes and the fullness of her heart, and the brilliance of her mind and the strength of her speech were all things that she gave away while she was living, and that we, like the song that we sang at the beginning, those will be things that will light our way long into the future. We are... Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. We are... we're going to one more song that she requested, since so many of us remembered her, but all of you remember her. And we're going to sing a song, or Cantor's going to sing a song called "We Remember." And as the words are as he sings the words, I'd encourage you just to think about the memories that you have of her, and make sure that you share those with Nancy, with Karen, with the rest of the family, and that we share them with each other, because that's how that light is going to continue. We remember.
And of course, when Carol prepared everything, of course she didn't plan for me to say anything, because she knew that I was not a great speaker, and she wanted me to sing. But yet, I just want to say something very short. Being in charge of the choir, and how much she loved the choir, she taught me, and I guess many of us, a great lesson about. Until the last day, she was so happy singing. How therapeutic is music for us, and she showed us the way to always be resilient until the end. And I really treasure that in her. And something that you don't know is that she always texts me at the end of services saying how lovely it was, how much she enjoyed it. She took the time to do that. And of course, I was, in one hand, it was reassuring to me that, she was rubbing my ego in a way, but on the other hand, she was really honest, and sometimes when she didn't like that, she would say that to me. I didn't like that tune. I learned a lot from her, and it really was a pleasure to have her in my life. In the rising of the sun, we remember. In the blowing of the wind, we remember. In the opening of paths, we remember. We remember. In the blueness of the sky, we remember. In the rustling of the wind, we remember. As the year starts and it ends, we remember. We remember. When we weary and need strength, we remember. When we lost and sick at heart, we remember. When we've joys we yearn to share, we remember. We remember. So long as we live, they too shall live. There are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. They are now a part of us. As we remember, we remember. We remember.
We're going to conclude by reciting Kaddish Yatom, and then it would not be Carol's funeral if her beloved choir didn't share their voices and their hearts with us. And then afterwards, we'll go into the social hall and share some more stories and memories of her. If you'd like to if you don't know Kaddish, you can find it in the blue book, in either underneath, blue book underneath, or in front of you on page 598. Give you a chance to I invite the congregation to please rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach rute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chaye dechol beit Israel, ba'gala u'v'zman kari v'imru. Yehei shemei rabbah nevarach le'alam olomei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Yitadar, Yitalev, Yitalal, Shemei, Dekudesha, Barichu, Leilan min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma v'imru. Yehei shlama rabba min Shemaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom b'mroma, Uya aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. The source of peace, send peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved. Together we say, Amen. You can be seated.
The first piece that we are going to sing is Ashkiveinu, is a prayer that we say in the evening prayers, in which we ask God for protection, to grant God for protection, always to raise us up to life renewed. second song is comes from Sam, in which we say how good it is, how pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to be together in peace and harmony, and that's what we are here all today. הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבטחים גם יחד, 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 הנה מה טוב ומנעים שבטחים
I want to say thank you all for coming. I hope you'll join us in the Wiener Social Hall for a little food. And for those of you who have joined us online, thank you. And we hope that you will reach out to the family and share your stories with them as well.